In today's video, we uncover the powerful story of an Air Force captain and a moment with President Trump that changed everything. To get the complete story, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon. The East Room of the White House glowed. Under brilliant lights, American flags stood proudly, medals sparkled, and camera shutters clicked. President Donald Trump was prepared to present a prestigious award to an Air Force captain whose bravery had rescued many lives during a top-secret, overseas operation. Her name was Captain Reina Torres, a composed and highly respected 30-year-old officer. Trump approached the podium and began, "Today we recognize bravery, but bravery doesn't always come from the battlefield." The audience erupted in applause as Captain Reina walked forward in her neatly pressed uniform. But something didn't feel right. She didn't smile. Just as the president reached out with the medal, Reina raised her hand, signaling him to stop. The room fell into a stunned silence. "Mr. President," she said softly, "I can't accept this award. Not today." There were audible gasps. The Secret Service grew tense. Reporters began to murmur. Trump, confused, paused and asked, "Why not, Captain?" Her voice was steady, though emotion flickered in her eyes. "Because this medal isn't mine. It belongs to someone who's been forgotten." The room was motionless. Cameras zoomed in closer. Trump's expression turned serious. "Who?" he asked. Reina took a breath. "To a man who proudly wore the uniform, who once saved my life, and who died unrecognized." She turned to face the crowd. "I want to tell you about Staff Sergeant Elijah Brooks, a janitor, a veteran, and my personal hero." The room grew even quieter. What had been planned as a celebration shifted into a story America wasn't expecting, but one it deeply needed. Everyone leaned in as Reina continued. "Staff Sergeant Elijah Brooks," she said again. "Some of you may have seen him around Arlington Air Base. He was the janitor, quiet, polite, always there. But no one really knew who he was." She went on. "He was far more than a janitor. He was a war hero, a decorated soldier. And he once saved my life." Trump listened closely now, not as a politician, but as a man. "I met Elijah when I was just starting out as a lieutenant," Reina said. "I was overwhelmed, reckless. After a serious training mistake, I broke down. In the hallway, Elijah found me, didn't scold me, didn't judge. Instead, he told me his story." She paused. "He talked about Vietnam, about saving his entire unit during an ambush. But when he came home, there was no welcome, no awards, just silence." She turned back to the crowd. "Why was Elijah cleaning floors instead of commanding troops? Why did we walk by him every day, without asking who he was?" A tear slid down her face. "Because we judge by titles, by rank, not by the depth of someone's service." The silence became heavy. "Before he passed last year," she added, her voice trembling, "Elijah made me promise him something. He said, don't let them forget who we were. Remind them that some heroes wear work clothes, not medals." Her eyes shifted to the medal in Trump's hands. "I can't take this, sir, until the country acknowledges the man who truly earned it." Then she stepped back, leaving the room gripped by a name that had never been mentioned before. Captain Reina's speech sent shockwaves across the nation. The video spread rapidly online. Every major news outlet aired the moment. Suddenly, Elijah Brooks was everywhere. But few people knew the full story. At Arlington Air Base, stunned, officers spoke in hushed tones. "You mean the janitor? The one who worked here for 20 years? They remembered his friendly smile, but not his past. Reina stood before Elijah's old locker, untouched since his death. Inside were worn boots, a folded flag, a faded photo of a young man in uniform, and a sealed envelope labeled "To the one who listens." Hands trembling, she opened it later in her room. Inside was a handwritten note addressed to an officer with heart. "You once asked why I never sought recognition." It read, "I served for my brothers, not for praise. But if you ever get the chance, tell them we were here. Tell them we mattered." Tears blurred her eyes. Reina retrieved a copy of Elijah's military file she had quietly saved. Inside were commendations, stamped denied, one after the other. Reina knew then this wasn't about accepting a medal. It was about restoring a forgotten hero's dignity. The next morning, she entered the Pentagon, file in hand. This time, not as a captain seeking approval, but as a soldier fighting for justice. At the Office of Military Records, she placed the file on the counter. "I want to request a formal review of Staff Sergeant Elijah Brooks' commendation history." The clerk didn't look up. "That file's closed. No living relatives, nothing we can do. He was denied recognition. He earned that should matter," she argued. The clerk replied, "That was common with Vietnam vets, especially minorities." "No offense," Reina clenched her jaw. "That's exactly why it needs to be corrected." "Fine," he said. "Fill out a DD-149. But don't expect much." Reina submitted the form, but didn't stop there. She contacted survivors from Elijah's old unit. They were hard to find, but one name stood out: Colonel Wallace Benton. When she called, his voice broke. "Elijah Brooks. I thought he died in Nam." "You're telling me he's been here all this time," she explained. A long silence followed. Then Benton said, "He saved my life. I owe him everything." If you're doing this, I'm with you. That was the turning point. One by one, old comrades stepped forward, and the long-hidden story of Elijah Brooks began to come alive. Raina visited Elijah's last home, a simple trailer outside Washington, D.C. It was just as he'd left it. Dusty medals from other soldiers, framed letters, yellowed clippings, none of them were about him. A trunk beneath his bed held a journal. They see a janitor. One entry read, "But I hear helicopters and gunfire. I remember dragging men out of flames." She read quietly. Every page spoke of duty, brotherhood, not fame. The final line said, "If anyone ever asks, tell them I didn't disappear. I just waited in the shadows, hoping someone would notice." Raina now knew what to do. 2 weeks after the White House event, she was summoned back, this time for a private meeting. Trump looked out the Oval Office window. "You made quite an impression, Captain." "Yes, sir," she replied. He turned, holding Elijah's file. "I read this. I had no idea. Most didn't," she said. "I've met thousands of vets," Trump said quietly, "but this one, we failed." Raina pulled out Elijah's journal. He never asked for recognition, just remembrance. Trump flipped through the journal, his expression softening. This man was a hero. She nodded. He didn't need this medal, but the country needs to know he existed. Trump smiled slightly. "You know what I think? We honor him publicly. A new medal, a monument, a message to every forgotten warrior." Raina blinked. "Are you serious, sir?" "Dead serious, and I want you to lead it." She saluted, eyes moist. "Thank you, Mr. President." "Let's give the silent soldier his voice," he replied. Soon after, the government introduced the Elijah Brooks Medal of Silent Valor, dedicated not to battlefield glory, but to those whose service was overlooked. The first recipient was Elijah himself, posthumously. Media attention surged. Veterans across the country wrote letters. One said, "My uncle died fixing planes. No one knew he flew in 2 wars. Thank you for giving him a voice." Raina visited Elijah's unmarked grave. "They see you now, Sergeant," she whispered. The White House called again. "Bring the speech," they told her. "Bring the journal." "I'll bring Elijah," she answered. The night before the ceremony, she stood in a quiet auditorium. A velvet box holding the new medal rested on a stand. A young airman approached nervously. "Captain Torres. My grandfather served with Elijah. He used to talk about how Elijah saved lives. I never believed it until now." Raina smiled. "He saved more than lives. He saved honor." Later, alone with the journal, she found a line she had missed. "Real heroes don't wait for applause. They stand when no one else will." She closed the journal. "Tomorrow, they'll stand for you." The next day, Arlington Cemetery filled with people. Trump stood at the podium. "Today, we correct a national memory. Staff Sergeant Elijah Brooks was a hero, not because someone labeled him one, but because his comrades lived through him." He motioned to the medal. "Captain Torres, would you do the honors?" Raina lifted the medal high. "This is for every quiet warrior who gave all and asked for nothing." Applause rang out, but many wept. After that, stories poured in. Medics, engineers, cooks, forgotten heroes, all finally seen. Raina received a letter. "My father served under Brooks. He called him a ghost who saved lives. Now I know who he meant." She launched the Silent Valor Project to research and honor unrecognized vets. She traveled the nation, sharing Elijah's journal. One day, a package arrived. A note from President Trump. "Captain Torres, Congress is drafting legislation to review all denied military records due to bias. You lit the fire. History is watching now. Proud of you, Donald J. Trump." Elijah's story was reshaping military history. Colonel Benton visited Elijah's grave. "I thought he died decades ago," he whispered. "Turns out he lived a second life, and none of us knew." Raina laid the medal by the headstone. "He never asked for honor," she said, "but the country needed to give it." Memorial Day changed that year. Across the U.S., Elijah's name was read aloud. His face appeared on a monument to unsung heroes. Raina gave the keynote address at the Lincoln Memorial. He never marched in parades, but Staff Sergeant Elijah Brooks marched through history. At the Pentagon, a room was named in his memory. An empty chair stood in the center. "This chair," Raina explained, "is for every veteran we failed to see. It will never be filled, not from neglect, but from honor." Years later, she met Elijah's sister, Loretta. She held his medal and cried. He was afraid of being forgotten. Not anymore. The medal went on tour. At every stop, stories emerged. In Kansas, a man said, "This is for my mom. She drove ammo trucks in World War II and never got a flag. Now she's seen." The medal became more than medal, it became a movement. Before leaving office, Trump stood alone at Elijah's grave. He saluted. "Rest easy, soldier. You changed this country forever." He placed a coin on the stone. "To those who stood alone, we stand with you now." Raina opened Elijah's journal. Once more, one final quote. "Freedom isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet soldier who holds the line." She smiled. America had remembered him. Forever, every Memorial Day, she left a note at his grave. "You stood when no one saw. Now, no one forgets. One year another note was already there written by a child. My grandpa told me your story. I want to be a quiet hero. To Raina wept. Elijah had only asked to be remembered. Because of her, the world remembered them all. The end.